Hi, I'm Jill Osier, founder of Teneral Cellars, a woman-owned and run wine company. Join me as I have conversations with trailblazing women who are transforming the world with grit and grace. So grab a glass and let's drink some amazing wine together.
Hello, Phyllis. To all out there, welcome to this segment of Chill with Jill. And I am with my beloved sister, Phyllis Newhouse. I'm so thrilled to have you here today, Phyllis. Thank you for joining me on this segment.
Oh, I am so happy to be with you, chilling with Jill today.
Forgot to send you your wine to chill with me before this. So.
I know. I needed to have my bottle with me so I could really chill with Jill.
Absolutely. Rain check on that, sister. Okay.
There we go.
So, Phyllis, our audience is, we have a great diversity of women that listen from all different experiences and who bring their different voices to the table. And for me, the reason I love you so much is that you are one of the great female leaders in this country, and you have done so much. And, we're going to talk about a lot of things today, but, I know a lot of your story, and I think people from the outside may say, well, you know what, Phyllis, I mean, you're a great leader. You must have had parents that just said, you should be the CEO of this or that. And your story is quite different than that. And, you're one of the leading entrepreneurs in the country. You've started up an amazing women's movement called Shoulder Up. You're an Army veteran. And I'd love for you to share just some of your story with our audience today.
Well, I am turn this computer. So I grew up in a family of 11 children, and I'm number 10 of 11. And being number 10, you get an opportunity to learn a lot of who you want to be and what's possible. I had a lot of great mentors with my siblings, and then I have to tell you, my mom and dad. When I think back on raising 11 children and being able to have to sow a seed in each one, it's something very different. All of us had very different talents, very different needs. And I was always the one. So I kind of think of this, Jill. I think of my family like all of us had superpowers. So think of 11 superheroes. And what my dad used to say, I gave you the superpowers of having supervision, right? And so if you think of a person who has supervision, you can see the opportunity, you can see the future, you can see what others can't see. You can take that supervision and see a different perspective. And so I think because I used to really think I was a superhero and I thought I had superpowers, I began to see circumstances not being what people said they could be and what you knew you had the possibility. So having that image of being a superhero at a young age allowed me to dream and be able to dream into the future of what I wanted that to look like.
And so what motivated you to go into the service?
Yeah, that was another thing. I actually visit this is the power of the blessing of having 10 other siblings. I actually visit my sister at an Air Force base. She had gone in the Air Force, and it was right after I'd gone to school, college, and I was like, wow, just went there for the summer, and I saw women in Air Force uniforms, and they were commanders. And I remember walking with her one day, and this woman had on this Air Force jumpsuit, and I said to my sister, I said, what is she doing in a mechanic suit? She goes, she's not a mechanic, she's a pilot. And I said, she actually flies airplanes? And she goes, yeah, she flies airplanes. And it was in that moment that I saw possibilities of strong women, strong leadership. And I just knew that I wanted to, and they had this sense of pride about them. And I hadn't seen that before.
Hmm.
And any demographic of women that I had been around, especially at the university. So I decided, wow, I want to do this. And so that's how I ended up in the military.
Wow. Wow. And so you then are in the military, you come out of the military. I mean, you're the leader of a major cybersecurity company in this country. And, how did that transition from your service to that?
Well, so that transition happened as a result of, I knew that when I was in the military, and when you have been building organizations from ground up and you're leading, and you've got to be responsible for the budget, you've got resources, you've got logistics, you've got everything that an entrepreneur goes through is what military leaders go through. But the only thing about being in the military is they give you a manual on how to run government business.
Right, right.
Right? And there are it's hard to fail, right? It's hard. The obstacles that you have, you climb over them real quick. And so I knew that I had an entrepreneurial spirit from, managing large budgets and people and, all that kind of stuff. And so it was a no-brainer for me to take all of that and go do something where you could, build a community, families, and grow and scale, and take your expertise and skill set to do it. So for me, I 2 years before I left the military, I had already transitioned, meaning I had already seen, this is what I want to do, this is what I want, what the company looks like, this is the customers. So I kind of already had a vision of what that was going to look like. I told you I had superpowers.
Right. But I mean, for you, I've watched you over the years, and your constant transformation. I mean, you clearly have superpowers because, Phyllis, I mean, to me, when people spend time with you, you don't see a ceiling. You don't really see obstacles as any kind of deterrent. I think for me, as I look at you, I really believe you're a couple superpowers, but one is certainly you always approach things from a perspective of service. And two is you always look at that possibility of, okay, this may be the most successful company in my industry, but you know what? It could be that much greater. And, talk to us about what a good leader is and sort of how you've transformed as a leader, because I've seen that in you, and it's awe. I mean, it makes me be in awe of you, and it also it reminds me why so many people are attracted to you, because you don't just grow great businesses, but you always make an impact in the world as well.
Yeah, you know what, Jill? So I'm going to go back to those superpowers as a kid. I remember, my mom saying something. She said to me one day, she said, she asked me to go out and gather up all the kids and tell them it was time to come in. See, we ate one time in my home. There was no do-overs, warm-overs, none of that stuff, right? And so you either if you didn't eat, you didn't eat. So I remember one evening she said, "Go out and get all your brothers and sisters. Tell them it's time to come in." And if you know anything about growing up in the South in the summer, that's a hard task to get everybody to come in. And she said, and I remember her saying, I said, "Oh, they're not going to listen to me. They're not going to come in. They're just not." And she said, and talk about the power of words. She said, "You are a leader. You were born to lead. And you're not just a good leader. You are a great leader. Now go out there and get your brothers and sisters to come in." And so she said, "You know what to do to get them to come in." And Jill, I never forget this. I went outside and I went to the badass sister, like you just didn't play with her. And so I said, "Sissy, will you help me? Will you tell everybody that they need to come in? Will you help me up?" And she said, "Okay, listen up. She's got something to say. Go ahead." And I said, You all need to come in right now. Get in here." And so everybody started to move because she said, so that I learned something about leadership very early. There's a difference between a good leader and a great leader. Now, what I looked at is a good leader would have probably tried to go ahead and get everybody to rally up. But a great leader, they look for support. They look for ways that they can enhance, maybe when you may not have the confidence, that you're able to find the, the allies that you can work with to say. And so I learned that in the military real early. I learned going into a brand new organization. Every time I went into a new organization, you know what? Here's the difference between a good leader and a great leader. And I needed to find who are those influencers in the company, who are the folks that they respect, and then who's the underdog. You always want the underdog riding with you. And because you need to be able to say you lift somebody else up to rise to that occasion. So I think for me, I just think that you either love leading and you just have a passion for it. And I think that's really what separates the good leaders from the great leaders.
Well, and then, you grow up and you're very successful in the military, but you were in the military when there were probably not enough women in the military now, but there were even fewer then. And then you're a woman of color. So how did that impact your experience? And did you experience racism and sexism? And how did you overcome that given your superpowers?
Girl, it was every type of ism that you can think of in the military. Okay? You name it, we'll make up one. It probably was there. But I remember, when I left to go to training, I just remember something my mom said. She said, "You are above the rest in everything that you do." And she said, and you have to put this in your mind and never let it depart your mind, that you are the best above everything else. And I can remember telling you when I first got to basic training, I didn't really, I looked at it as a big sports team, everything, basic training is so physical, but then there's the mental. And I was so prepared for the mental. I think a lot of people, when you grow up in a family of 11, it's competitive all the time. Like you just got to win, right? And you never, get a word in. And so leaving a culture, growing up and having that as an environment that I grew up in, when I went in the military, it was super easy. But the wake-up call that I got was the first time I went to my first assignment and realized that all the leaders were white males. And so they expected you to bow down to them, and when you knew your career was in their hands, and I just remember being a young soldier, and I don't know if it's just I grew up in the South. I grew up with strong sisters. I had a strong mother, that I just made a decision day one in the military that I wasn't taking crap from anybody, and I was just and so I was super fearless. Even when I experienced racism, I called it out right then, even when it wasn't the most popular thing to do, because obviously your career would tank at the moment you filed a discrimination charge or a sexual harassment charge or any type of harassment charge, or if you complained about the culture in the military. But the reason I took such a stand against a lot of that was because I knew there were women coming up behind me, and then the more rank they gave me, the wilder I got with my opinions and voicing them. And then I just remember one day, one of the senior leaders said to me, "Oh my God, please don't give her another strike, because that means the whole army's going to change." And so, yeah, I experienced the racism at the highest level, but I was bold enough to call it out and be willing, to take it to the highest level to get that resolved. And something, I had great parents, and I just remember so many. It's amazing how these little things still stick with me today. My dad said one time, Jill, he said, "I hate it when people say I have too much to lose." He said, "The moment that you have too much to lose," he said, "Phyllis," he said, that means you don't have enough." He says, "So if you've got too much to lose, then you don't have enough." And so you got to, and so I always think about when somebody said, well, would you speak up about this, social injustice? Are you going to say Black Lives Matter in your organization? And then if I was to sit back in that moment and say, oh, wow, I've got too much to lose, then I don't have enough. I have a platform, a God-given, amazing platform, and I must use that platform because I cannot lose it when you stand for the right things. And that, it goes back to leadership.
Yes. Well, I remember, obviously you have the presence, and you always find amazing words to say to inspire your team and others. But I'll never forget when you were telling me how important even visualizing and manifesting success is. And I remember when you were going for a huge contract and you had practiced literally winning this award. So tell us about that, because I do that now, and I do that because of you. So
100%. So, we had an amazing opportunity. It was a huge contract. And what happened was, it took longer to award than it went on for a year. Now, imagine you thought you were going to win something in 90 days after you submitted it. And then a year goes by, 18 months go by, you're almost at 2 years. And so you could imagine the organization, there were folks, oh, we didn't really win this thing. Oh, all the work we put out. Wow, we're still talking about this contract. We're not going to win. And I just remember someone coming in my office, and and he came in my office. He goes, well, I just heard another rumor that they that who won that contract. We never won. I got so mad. I said, wash your mouth out. Wash your mouth out right now. Wash your mouth out with soap. Don't you ever utter those words to me. He looked at me like she's truly lost it. I said, go get everybody in the conference room. Get everybody. I don't care what they're doing. Tell them to stop what they're doing. Everybody go in the conference room. So they come in the conference room, and I said, hey guys, here's what we're going to do. I said, I don't like to lose. I said, we better find a way to win. And I said, and we're going to win every day. I said, here's what we're going to do. On the count of 3, we're going to scream so loud. I said, I want you to imagine that we just won this contract. They just told us. And I said, and I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. And everybody I said, on the count of 3, I count to 3, Jill, and everybody starts to scream. They're like, we won. They were running around the room. I said, go crazy with it. This isn't how you do a win. And they're just like really getting up. And then all of a sudden we see these security people coming to our front door because they thought there was like a shooter in the building. so now I said to them, I said, listen, here's what I want you to do. Go back to your prospective offices and do whatever you got to do for the rest of the day. But I want you to remember what that feels like. We've already celebrated, so we should never be shocked when we win, because we have that winning spirit within us, and winners never go around. And even when you win, that all it does is enhance what you're already feeling, but you have to feel like a winner every day. And I promise you, this, like, you can't even make this up. Remember, we've been waiting 18 months. 2 days later, I'm sitting at my desk, and I'm literally like this, I'm just sitting at the desk, and an email popped up. And the email says it was an email basically acknowledging. It said here, they were acknowledging the award, not to us. It was just saying that the contract had been awarded. Yeah. And I jumped out of my chair, didn't even open the email, jumped out, ran to the office next door to my COO, and I said, come to my office. You got to open this email. I can't do it. He goes, open what email? I said, open it. Now of course he thinks that I'm the high queen again, that this is not real. So he comes over to my office, he opens the email, and he goes, oh my God, we won. And he tears out of my office and runs down the hall. Now, I'm not with him. He's just gone, right? So he's screaming to all of the people in the office, we won. They don't know that it's a joke. I mean, they're thinking we're still acting. So they're like, oh, yes, we won. Right. And we're like, and then now I'm running behind him. No, this is a real deal. They're like, yeah, it's the real deal. We won. Finally, we had to print off the letter and then go to office, and then people were like, wow. But I can't tell you, in that moment, Jill, it forever changed the culture of this organization. If you ask anybody who's been here for a long time, they said that was the changing of the culture. And it's like now, when we have wins, we've learned to celebrate them ahead of time, in advance. That means that you believe in what you're doing. And even when we say, let's count the small wins, so when the big wins happen, we're so not shocked. Yeah.
Well, and you're also putting the right frequency out in the world, and energy is everything. And I've learned that from you, and I think that's invaluable. And to see that win in the present. And so Phyllis, you've started an amazing, multiple things I want to talk about, but You and Viola Davis started, an amazing organization supporting women called Shoulder Up. And, whenever I'm talking, and usually on my Chill with Jill segments, I talk about Shoulder Up because I think it's so incredibly important, the mission. But I don't want to take your thunder away. So talk to us about, why you started this. Tell us about it and how other women can get involved.
Yeah, so I started Shoulder Up Jill. It was really one of those things. Viola Davis and I, we got together, and it wasn't just like, oh, Viola and I got together. We were introduced, and at the end of that meeting, she just said, I want us to be girlfriends. We're gonna be girlfriends. I just know it. And I said, okay. And so she called me up. Anyway, she came out to visit, and we were just sitting there, just like you and I do all the time. We're just vibing, talking about everything under the sun. When you get in that kitchen, everybody, girlfriends in the kitchen, and have that glass of wine, And so we were just talking, and we were talking about how women, if you can have the biggest mouth in the room as a woman, but if you don't have the economic power, then change can't happen. Or you can have the biggest checkbook in the room, but if your mouth isn't big enough, your platform's not big enough, then the change doesn't happen. Right. But what if we leverage that? What if we use our economic power and our platforms? That's where we create real change. And when women work together and when they leverage everything, it's about the rock. I say women hold the rock. And people say, well, what's the rock? Give me the rock. I want to hold the rock. The rock is the resource, the opportunities, and the connections. And so when women, I want to hand Jill a connection today. I want to give Phyllis an opportunity. I'm going to open up, make sure you have the resources. And so we walk around with the rock all the time. And so really Shoulder Up came from that whole model that I grew up with, understanding you need the rock, carry the rock with you. And so, so we launched this in so many different countries because we found something that most women, no matter where you go in the world, no matter where you go, women have the same issues. They laugh and cry about the same things, no matter where you go. I was in India, and I was with a bunch of women from India, and we just fell out laughing, and people were looking at us like we were crazy. And we were laughing about something that was just, and I said, wow, okay, now this is real. No matter where you go, women are laughing and crying about the same thing. So that's why Shoulder Up was born.
And so, and I know for part of that is to stand up, to speak up, to shoulder up, and to really, but you started using the word support versus help.
Yeah.
So, and I want you to talk about that because it completely changed my, word choice, because I think word choice is so important. And when people say, how can I support you versus help you? I have a very different perspective now on that. So talk to us about that.
Yeah. So it was funny because I was at Viola's home in LA, and we were just hanging out in the kitchen again. And she said, she said, I really want you to help me. I was working with her on her business plan for Juby Productions, which was something that she was working on at the time. And she said, I really want you to help me. And I said, I will not help you. I would not do that. She said, what? I said, I will not help you. I said, you don't need my help. What you need is my support. And so I said, if I help you, here are the things I'm going to do. 1, 2, 3, and I am done. But if I support you, I'm going to dig deep. I'm going to roll up my sleeves. I'm going to get in there. I'm going to work with you through this process and through this journey. And I'm going to stand and crawl and do everything, and cry and do all those things. That is the difference in helping and support. Support says I'm emotionally tied. I'm spiritually tied. I'm financially tied. I'm resource. I'm opportunity tied. I'm connection tied. It says all of that. So I think if we had an opportunity, Jill, if I walk in a room and I say to a woman and I said, how can I support you today? Mm-hmm. The first thing they say, because women are used to being helped. They're not used to, if you ask a young girl or even a young woman and you say, how can I support you? They don't know how to answer the question because we're used to the language of help. And help says, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not sure I can do this. And help sends help is to me like throwing up the flag, help me, help me.
Right,
We
right.
don't do that. What we said, hey, look, support me. I've got this, but I need some soldiers. I need foot soldiers rolling with me, walking with me, and shouldering up with me. And so that's the difference.
Yep. No, it's beautiful. How can people get involved with Shoulder Up or learn more about that?
Yeah, so if you go to Shoulder, I mean, we're obviously on all the social media, actually shoulderup.com, you can sign up for the newsletters that we're talking about, and where there's activities in different cities and different countries, what they have going on. I'm actually getting ready to launch a project with Verizon, which is shoulder up for executive women who are looking to scale their career, and they're looking for support, and they're how to create a shoulder up support group within your organization. Because think about this, Jill. Most of the time, you get one woman moves up to the executive level, and then they said, "Well, we only have one woman in the," and somehow people feel comfortable with that. And so I say, if you are the one that's chosen, you are the chosen one, my friend. You better run down that hallway and open up the door and put a stopper in the door and say, everybody, the door is open. Come on in. Because if you have the door open, then don't close it and put bolt locks on it so nobody else can come in. And,
Yeah.
and if you go back through the history of, only one going to get the job. And it's no different of people of color. I just said this to a huge private equity group that I've been talking with, and I said and this is a publicly traded company, a publicly traded company I was talking to, and so we're talking about me coming on this board, and I said to them, I went and I looked at the board, and I said, wow, and they have some very heavy hitters on this board, and I said, here's what, I'm super excited, super pumped about doing this, because, they have 13 board members. There's only one, I would be the first woman they've ever had on the
Wow.
board, the first person of color. So I wanted to understand the motivation behind having finally in 2020, having the first. Like, you've been around for 40 years. Like, come on, like, tell me what the motivation is to do this. And then you can get my attention. And so they begin to tell me all this stuff. And I said, I don't want to take the fourth seat unless you're going to be committed to bringing not just me as a woman, but more than one. And then tell me what that would look like in a time frame. And then it also applies to people of color. And so they said, well, we hadn't, this is a very unusual request. We hadn't gotten anything like this. I said, well, if you want to call me back, then that is the conversation I'd like to have. Now, remember, I told you, let me tell you what was in the back of my mind, Jill, what my mother said. My father told me. He said, if you think about what you have to lose, then you don't have enough. And that is what I was thinking about the moment. Who turns down a board seat this lucrative, this amazing opportunity? I do, when it is not in alignment with what I believe in, my core principles and values.
Wow, no, that's huge, Phyllis, and I know that is who you are, as a person and a leader. So with Shoulder Up as well, I believe you've moved even into creating funds and doing your own investing, because you, as a woman and as a woman of color, that for so many women and business owners and people of color, the lack of access to capital is a huge mountain to overcome or to climb. So tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I did a partnership with Manhattan Ventures to create SPVs, which is special purpose vehicle opportunities, so that women could get an opportunity to sit at the table. And through this journey, this is very interesting. What I found, no matter, and I found this at different levels, Jill, we're in the entertainment, athletic world, entrepreneurs, and community leaders as well. And what I found is that a lot of women weren't comfortable investing. So when women need capital to grow and scale their business, you would think women would just flock at the opportunity to support another woman. But what I also found is that the financial literacy wasn't there. They didn't really understand the investment process. They really didn't understand, even though they have a company, they really didn't know the investment process, because, they organically grew their own company. They never went out to raise capital. And so but I found once they were educated on the process, they felt more empowered to invest. And so that's what drove me to really get more women at the table. But you got to give them the financial literacy to be at the table, to feel comfortable that they're at the table. Because getting at the table and not feeling like an imposter at the table is a whole nother show. That's something we can do another time. But so I like Serena Ventures. Obviously, Serena Ventures, she just launched her fund, and she and I have been talking about, she's really trying to pull a lot of women into her fund. But what I love about Serena Ventures is that she's targeting the majority women of color for $85 million fund, and so that's exciting. So yeah, so Shoulder Up has led to us looking at where we can help empower women by giving them the financial literacy to become savvy investors, understanding the investment game, how it works. I would say I'm most proud of about Shoulder Up.
That's wonderful. So Phyllis, we don't have a lot of time left, but you are working now on a project that is awesome, and for allies like me, very educational as well. So talk to us about the See the Color campaign that you're doing.
You know what? Yeah, this has been very fascinating, this journey. See the Color, right when the pandemic hit, and I mentor a lot of companies, and people say, how do you have so much time? That's my other superpower. It's called extra ordinary powers to multitask. But and my assistant would probably say not. But anyway. So as I was starting to talk to companies, I started to feel the stress, and I started to feel their pain of what was going to happen in my business, and how am I going to get through this, and the lack of funding, et cetera. And as you know, minority companies, they have even less opportunities for funding. Mm-hmm. So as I started to listen to some of them, and it hit me one day. One of the mentees that I was working with, she said to me, I don't want people to just see my color. I want them to see my real capabilities. She said, I hate walking into that room and they say, well, are you a minority? And so interestingly enough, I was talking to a Fortune 10 company. I say Fortune 10, this is a big company. And we were sitting around the table, and I remember they didn't know we were a minority company. They just didn't know it. So when we got on the Zoom call, they were totally shocked. Well, I'm Black. I'm probably going to be Black tomorrow too, and next week too. So anyway, they said the lady was a bit taken, and she said back. She goes, I didn't know you were a minority-owned company. This is what she said, and this is a Fortune 10 company. I said yes. I said yes, we are. We are also one of your cyber leaders in this industry. And she said, are you registered in my supplier diversity program? And I said, no, I am not. And she said, well, I think we're going to need you to register. I said, I would not register for your minority supplier diversity program. I would not do that. I said, because I am not here because I'm a minority vendor. I am here because you have an interest in the capabilities that we have. So there's nothing minority about the capabilities we're bringing to the table. Nothing. So that prompted me to do hashtag See the Color, because I want people to see businesses that have strong capabilities that have nothing to do. Yes, see my color, but look at my capabilities. That's what the hashtag See the Color campaign was about. And
so, but people can hear you do great interviews with business leaders.
Leadership Inspiration Talk. You can go back to Spotify, iTunes, and download them. We've done 16 interviews, 16 very credible, just beautiful businesses, some amazing stories that you'll hear, and just some of the passion that's behind the journey of a lot of the entrepreneurs.
Oh, that's wonderful, Phyllis. Now, you do such great work. And again, I know you always put service first in all your leadership inspirational talks, all your interviews. You're always talking about leading with service. And do you find that as we close out, do you find that is more of a female leadership style, or is there something that you would say is really, have you been able to define something that is a different in leadership style between men and women, or great men and women leaders?
You know what I found, here's what I love, Jill, you can this goes back from a good leader to a great leader, but I think great leaders lead with purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Purpose, passion, and power. When you understand the power that you have, you lead like just charge through it because you just know that what you're, and that's the inspirational side. Then when you have passion, you're able to see something in others, and you have to see the problem and be okay to talk about the problem. And then and then when I say leading with purpose, it is like this is who I am, and this is what I stand for, and so no gray areas. This is it. This is the leader that I am. And when you can truly define who you are as a leader, I think the other passion, purpose, and power comes with that.
Thank you, Phyllis. I think that's a great high note to leave this on. I love your passion, your purpose, and your leadership, and I certainly love our friendship because my world is better because you're in it. My life is certainly, and I know that everyone listening today will love what they have heard because we're all about empowered women, empowering women, and so you do that every day, all day, every day. So. Thank you for being on this segment of Chill with Jill, Phyllis, and you got something else to say, so let's go.
This is the last thing I'll say. First of all, I'm so grateful that you did this, and I'm appreciative. And you know how much, girl, I got mad love for you. And here's what I want to say. I want to tell you this relationship. Sometimes you are going to find women in your life that you will call your soul sister. And I call Jill my soul sister because it's not about the color of the skin. It is about the depth of the soul that we have, and we're willing to go together and be vulnerable and to expose that. And when you do that, you know that you have a soul sister. So I consider you not just my friend, but my true soul sister. So I'm forever grateful for the relationship that you and I have and the love that we've been able to build over the years. So
thank you, Phyllis. I feel exactly the same way. I love you, sister. So thank you. Thank you for being with me today, and enjoy that beautiful weather in Atlanta I see behind you there.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a great weekend. So
wonderful. Thanks, Phyllis.
Thank you.
All right.